The morning sun rose over the Korean peninsula, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The Global Children's Sanctuary stood like a small city of hope, its white buildings spreading across green hills. 12,000 children called this place home. They came from every corner of human space, from Earth and from colonies scattered among the stars. They were orphans, children who had lost their families to accidents, diseases, or the simple cruelty of fate. Director Hana walked through the main courtyard, watching the children begin their day. She was 58 years old, with gray hair tied back in a simple knot. Her face carried the lines of someone who had seen both war and peace. Before she ran this sanctuary, she had been a military medic. She had saved lives on battlefields across 3 star systems, but nothing in her life gave her more pride than this place. A group of young children ran past her, chasing a ball across the grass. Hana smiled. These moments were why she had dedicated 20 years to this sanctuary. "Director," a voice called out. Park Ho approached her with his usual serious expression. He was 34, tall and strong, with the careful eyes of a former soldier. He served as head of security, though the job was mostly peaceful. The sanctuary had never faced any real threat. "The morning report is ready." "Anything unusual?" Hana asked. "Nothing, clear skies, all systems normal." Ho allowed himself a small smile. Another quiet day. In the children's dormitory, 12-year-old Bo Young was helping the younger kids get ready for breakfast. Bo Young had lived at the sanctuary since she was 4 years old. Her parents had died in a mining accident on Mars. She barely remembered them now, but she had found a new family here. "Come on, slow ones," Bo Young said, gently pushing a group of 5-year-olds toward the dining hall. "The food will get cold." A little boy named Woo Jin tugged at her sleeve. "Bo Young, will you sit with us today?" "Of course," she said, ruffling his hair. None of them knew that far above Earth, something terrible was approaching. The Raider fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. There were 15 ships, each one dark and sharp like a blade. There were a species known throughout the galaxy for one thing: they took children. For 3,000 years, they had raided other worlds, capturing the young of different species and forcing them into slavery. The Galactic Federation had rules against such things, but they were powerful. They had many ships and many soldiers. The Federation wrote strongly worded letters and held meetings, but nothing ever changed. Commander Os stood on the bridge of his flagship. His gray skin stretched over a tall, thin body. His eyes were black and cold. He looked at the blue planet growing larger on his screen. "The humans are a weak species," he said to his officers. "They joined the Federation only 120 years ago. They are farmers and traders. They will not fight. The codes we purchased will bypass their orbital defenses," his second officer reported. "We can strike the target and leave before they respond." Os made a sound like grinding stones. It was his species' form of laughter. "Take what we came for. Human children sell well in the outer markets." On Earth, Captain Shin Dongwoo was finishing his morning coffee aboard the orbital defense station. He was 45, a calm man who had spent his career making sure nothing bad ever happened. His station monitored everything coming in and out of Earth space. An alarm suddenly screamed. "Captain," his sensor officer shouted, 15 ships just appeared inside our defense zone. They're using Federation authorization codes." Dongwoo's coffee cup fell from his hand. "That's impossible. How did they?" "They're firing, targets are. Sir, they're targeting the Korean peninsula, the children's sanctuary." "Scramble everything," Dongwoo roared. "Everything we have now." But he knew, with a sickness in his heart, that they were too late. The first explosion hit the eastern dormitory. Hana was thrown to the ground by the blast. Dust and debris rained down around her. She heard screaming, the terrible screaming of frightened children. Decades of military training took over. She pushed herself up and started running toward the sounds. Ho, she shouted into her communicator. Status. We're under attack. His voice was barely audible over gunfire. Alien ships, they're landing troops. Another explosion. Another building collapsed. Hana saw children running in every direction, crying, calling for help. She grabbed as many as she could and pushed them toward the underground shelters. Move, everyone move. Ho sprinted across the courtyard with his security team. The soldiers were already on the ground, tall gray figures in black armor. They were not killing everyone. They were selecting. They grabbed children and dragged them toward landing craft. They're taking them, Ho shouted. He raised his weapon and fired. One fell, then another, but there were so many. Bo Young had been near the dining hall when the attack started. The ceiling came down, and she found herself trapped under a table with little Wu Jin and 3 other children. She covered Wu Jin's ears, trying to block out the sounds of death. Stay quiet, she whispered. Stay very quiet. Through a gap in the rubble, she saw the gray aliens walking past. They were looking for children, looking for her. Hana reached the central courtyard and found Nightmare waiting for her. Bodies lay everywhere. Small bodies. She fell to her knees, a sound coming from her throat that was not quite human. Then she saw a group of children backed against a wall. A soldier was approaching them. Hana did not think. She ran. She threw herself between the alien and the children, spreading her arms wide. The soldier struck her with the back of his weapon. Pain exploded through her body. He struck her again and again. But she did not move. She would not move. Ho reached the emergency shield controls. His hands were shaking as he entered the codes. The sanctuary's shield system had never been tested in real combat. It was meant to protect against storms, not attacks. He pressed the button anyway. A blue dome of energy spread across the remaining buildings. Weapons fire bounced off harmlessly. The aliens looked up in surprise. All units withdraw, Commander As ordered from orbit. He had seen Earth's defense ships launching. We have enough cargo. Leave now. The soldiers retreated to their landing craft, dragging captured children with them. The ships rose into the sky and vanished into the clouds. Then there was silence. Hana lay on the ground, broken and bleeding, but alive. Around her, the children she had protected were crying, but they were breathing. That was all that mattered. The final count came hours later. 847 children dead, 156 staff members dead, 230 children taken. Captain Dongwu wept at his station as he read the report. Below him, Earth was no longer quiet. Every emergency channel was exploding with fury. Every government was demanding answers. President Ho stood before the cameras, his face like stone. Behind him, the flags of every human nation and colony flew together. Today they touched our children, he said, his voice cold and steady. Today they made the last mistake their species will ever make. The message was broadcast on every Federation channel, in every language, to every corner of the galaxy. You touched our children. And across human space, something ancient and terrible began to wake. 48 hours had passed since the attack. 48 hours since the world changed forever. The United Earth Assembly Hall was full for the first time in decades. Representatives from every human nation and colony sat in silence. The screens around the hall showed images from the sanctuary, broken buildings, covered bodies, empty beds that would never be slept in again. President Ho stood at the center podium. He was 62 years old, a man who had spent his life in politics and diplomacy. He had always believed in talking, in negotiating, in finding peaceful solutions. But as he looked at the faces around him, he knew that time had ended. The Galactic Federation has responded to our formal complaint, he said. His voice was heavy. They offer their condolences. They promise an investigation. He paused, letting the silence grow. The investigation will take 4 to 6 years. That is their standard protocol. The hall erupted. Representatives shouted, some cursed, some wept. Ho raised his hand and slowly the room fell quiet again. 4 to 6 years, he repeated, to investigate the murder of 847 children, to perhaps, maybe, possibly find the ones who were taken. He shook his head slowly. I told them no. A murmur rippled through the assembly. I have invoked Article 7 of our membership charter, Ho continued. The right of independent military action when a member species faces a threat to their young. The Federation cannot stop us. They will not stop us. He looked directly into the cameras, knowing that billions of humans across every colony were watching. We are going to war. On the colony world of New Sol, Admiral Bai received the orders she had been expecting. She was 55 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had retired 3 years ago, thinking her fighting days were over. She was wrong. The First Vengeance Fleet, she said, reading the document on her screen. 400 ships to start. More will join as we travel. Her aide, a young officer named Sora, stood at attention. Admiral, ships are already reporting in from every colony. New Sol, Mars, Europa, Titan. Everyone wants to join. Of course they do. Bai stood and walked to her window. Outside she could see transport ships filling the sky. Soldiers were already gathering. Those were our children. Every human in the galaxy feels it. On Earth, the response was even more intense. Recruiting stations opened in every city, and the lines stretched for miles. Old veterans who had not held a weapon in decades showed up ready to fight. Young people who had never known war demanded to be trained. Factories that made farming equipment began making weapons. Shipyards that built cargo vessels started building warships. The entire economy of human civilization turned toward a single purpose. Park Ho, still bandaged from the attack, stood outside the ruined sanctuary and watched a transport ship descend. His younger brother stepped off. I joined yesterday, his brother said. They're shipping us out tomorrow. Ho embraced him tightly. Find them, bring them home. We will, brother, we all will. Across human space, the same scenes played out millions of times. Families said goodbye. Friends made promises. Everyone understood what was happening. This was not just a military operation. This was humanity rising as one. At the Federation Council headquarters, Ambassador Lee Sung-min requested an emergency session. The council chamber was a vast circular room where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss galactic matters. Most of them looked at the human ambassador with confusion or pity. Humanity was such a young species, barely a century old in galactic terms. What could they possibly do against the? Sung-min was 48 years old, a diplomat who had spent his career building bridges between species. He was known for his calm voice and reasonable arguments. Today, his voice was still calm, but something in his eyes made the other ambassadors uncomfortable. The Federation Council acknowledges the tragedy that occurred on Earth, the council speaker said. We urge humanity to allow proper procedures to. No, Sung-min said simply. The chamber went silent. In 800 years of Federation history, no species had ever interrupted the speaker. I am here to explain something to this council, Sung-min continued. Something that perhaps you do not understand about my species. We have a concept that seems to be unique to humans. We call it total war. He paused, looking around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. When you threaten our children, we do not negotiate. We do not calculate acceptable losses. We do not follow procedures or protocols. We become something else entirely. A representative made the grinding sound of laughter. Human, you are farmers, traders. You have been part of this galaxy for 120 years. We have been conquering for 3,000. You will do nothing. Sung-min turned to face the directly. His expression did not change. 3,000 years, he said softly. In 3,000 years you have taken the children of many species, and in 3,000 years no one has stopped you. Do you know why? He took a step closer. Because those species were sensible. They calculated the cost of war against you and decided it was too high. They valued their own lives more than they valued their children. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We are not sensible. We are not logical. We are human. And you made the mistake of touching our children. The representative's laughter faded. Something in the human's voice was wrong, something dangerous. What will you do? The representative demanded. Attack us. We have 10,000 warships. We have. You have 30 days, Sungmin interrupted. 30 days until we find your world. And when we arrive, we will remind the galaxy what happens when you harm human children. He turned and walked out of the chamber without looking back. Admiral Bai stood on the bridge of her flagship, the vessel now named Broken Lullaby. The name had been chosen by the crew themselves. Around her, 400 ships waited in formation. The first Vengeance fleet was ready. But even as she watched, more ships were arriving. Colony vessels, cargo ships converted to warships, personal craft armed with whatever weapons their owners could find. The fleet grew from 400 to 600, then 800, then 1,000. Admiral, her communications officer, reported. We're receiving messages from the Collective, the Republic, and the Empire. They're offering support. Bai raised an eyebrow. Why would they help us? They say, the officer paused, reading the messages. They say they took their children too, long ago. They want to see justice finally done. For a moment, something like hope flickered in Bai's chest. Then she hardened her heart. Hope could come later. First came duty. Tell them they are welcome to join, but they follow our orders, our rules. And what are our rules, Admiral? Bai looked out at the fleet, at the thousands of ships that had come to fight for children they had never met. No mercy, she said quietly. No quarter, no prisoners. The order went out across all channels. The fleet would depart in 1 hour. In that hour, something happened that no one had seen before. Every ship in the fleet raised black flags. In human naval tradition, black flags meant one thing. Those who flew them would not stop until the enemy was destroyed. They would not accept surrender. They would not show mercy. The Federation Council watched the departure through long-range sensors. The representative laughed again, though this time there was less certainty in the sound. But other species, older species who had studied human history, fell silent. They had read about human wars. They had seen what happened when humans fought for something they truly believed in. And now, for the first time in galactic history, all of humanity was united in a single cause. As the first Vengeance fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, a single transmission was broadcast across every frequency. We are coming for our children. Get in our way and you will be destroyed. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Across the galaxy, species who had watched humans as a minor curiosity began to understand. The farmers had become soldiers. The traders had become warriors. And they were very, very angry. The first Vengeance fleet moved through deep space like a river of steel and fire. 2 weeks had passed since leaving Earth. Admiral Bai stood on the bridge of the Broken Lullaby, studying star charts and intelligence reports. Sleep had become a distant memory. The fleet had grown beyond anything she had imagined. What started as 400 ships was now 2,000. Colony vessels arrived daily, their crews eager to join the hunt. Cargo ships had been transformed into troop carriers. Mining vessels now carried weapons instead of ore. Every human who could fly a ship wanted to be part of this mission. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Han Yi-jun from the communications station. He was young, only 29, but his eyes carried the same cold determination as everyone else in the fleet. Intelligence, report from Commander Nam. Bai nodded, put her through. The image of Nam 1 appeared on the main screen. She was 38, with a sharp mind and a talent for finding information that others wanted hidden. She served as the fleet's chief intelligence officer, working from a small ship that moved ahead of the main force. "Admiral, I found them," one said. Her voice was tight with emotion. "The children are on IV. It's a slave world in the outer edge of space." Bai felt her heart stop for a moment. All of them, all 230. All of them still alive. One's jaw tightened. "They're scheduled for processing in 30 days. We have to move fast." Processing. Bai said the word like it was poison. She knew what it meant. That would break the children's spirits, train them to obey, prepare them for sale to the highest bidder. "Send me everything you have on IV. Defenses, troop numbers, facility layouts, everything." "Already on its way, Admiral." In the training bay of the assault ship Guardian's Oath, Major pushed his soldiers through another round of exercises. His Special Forces unit had been renamed the Guardians. Their single mission: rescue the children when the fleet reached IV. Was 40 years old, built like a wall, with scars from a dozen battles. He had served in the military for 20 years, but nothing had ever felt as important as this mission. "Again," he shouted as his soldiers practiced breaching techniques. "Faster, those children are counting on us." Sergeant Omi Young, his second in command, jogged over with a data pad. She was 32, smaller than most of the soldiers but twice as fierce. "Major, the new intelligence came in. I've updated our training scenarios." Took the pad and studied it. The facility on IV was massive. Underground levels, heavy security, 10,000 soldiers guarding it. His team numbered 500. "Impossible odds," Mi-young said quietly. "No such thing," replied. "Not when children are waiting." He turned to address his soldiers. 500 faces looked back at him, every one of them ready to die for children they had never met. "Listen up," he said. "I'm not going to lie to you. This mission will be hard. Many of us won't come home, but those children have been waiting for someone to save them. They've been afraid, alone, wondering if anyone cares." His voice grew harder. "We care, and we're going to bring them home, every single one of them." A soldier in the back raised her hand. Jin, the team's chief medic, was 29 with gentle eyes that seemed wrong on a soldier. "Major, what's our priority if we have to choose between mission success and our own survival?" Met her eyes. "The children come first, always. If I fall, you keep moving. If half of us fall, you keep moving. We do not stop until those kids are safe." The room was silent. Then slowly, 500 soldiers nodded in understanding. The fleet continued its journey, jumping from system to system, always moving closer to space. And as they traveled, complications arose. The Galactic Federation sent an official demand for humanity to stand down. Admiral Bai deleted the message without responding. 3 alien species quietly offered support. Their ships joined the fleet, their crews sharing stories of children lost to the centuries ago. An old commander told Bai about his daughter, taken when he was young. He had waited 200 years for someone to fight back. "We could not do it alone," he said. "We were not strong enough, but you humans, you do not know when to quit." "That's not a weakness," Bai replied. "That's what makes us human." Then came the message from the Commander Oss appeared on every screen in the fleet. His gray face twisted in what might have been a smile. "Humans," he said, "we know you are coming. We want you to know something. If your fleet advances one more light year toward our space, we will kill every child we took from your world. Their deaths will be on your hands." The transmission ended. For a long moment the bridge of the broken lullaby was silent. Bai could feel the eyes of her crew on her. Everyone was waiting. Would she stop? Would she negotiate? Would she let fear of losing the children hold her back? Bai walked slowly to the communications console. She opened a channel, not just to her fleet, but to every open frequency in the galaxy. They would hear this. The Federation would hear this. Every species in known space would hear this. "This is Admiral Bai of the Human First Vengeance Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm, almost soft. "We received your threat. We have a response." She paused. "You took our children. You killed our children. Now you threaten to kill more. Let me tell you what that means to us." Her voice hardened into steel. "It means you have chosen extinction. Not defeat. Not surrender. Extinction. When we reach your space, we will not stop at rescuing our children. We will destroy every ship, every station, every weapon you possess. We will remove your ability to ever threaten anyone again. And if you harm one more child before we arrive, we will not leave your species with even the memory of what you once were." She leaned closer to the pickup. "You think threatening children will make us retreat. You think we are like the other species you have bullied for 3,000 years. You are wrong. We are human, and we are coming." She cut the transmission. Around her, the bridge crew stood in stunned silence. Then slowly, Lieutenant Commander Yi-jun began to clap. Others joined. Soon the entire bridge was applauding. "Navigation," Bai said as if nothing had happened. "Increase speed. I want to reach the border in 3 days." "Yes, Admiral." On the third day, the fleet encountered the first resistance. 50 warships waited at the border, a patrol group meant to turn back intruders. Standard Federation doctrine called for communication first, attempt negotiation, find peaceful solutions. Bai looked at the ships on her screen. She thought about 847 children who would never grow up. She thought about 230 more, scared and waiting on a distant world. "All ships," she said quietly. "Attack formation, no survivors." The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 50 ships had been reduced to scattering debris. Not a single enemy survived. Not a single message of surrender was accepted. On worlds across the galaxy, species watched the battle recordings with growing unease. This was not how warfare was conducted. This was not proportional response or measured engagement. This was annihilation. The High Command received the recordings too. For the first time in 3,000 years, they felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Admiral Bai walked through the debris field, her flagship carefully navigating the wreckage. Her crew was quiet, processing what they had done. Some looked troubled, others looked satisfied. "Admiral," Yi-jun said softly, "was this necessary, the complete destruction?" Bai turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. "They took children," she said. "They killed children. They planned to sell children into slavery. There is no punishment too severe. There is no response too extreme. They will learn this lesson or they will cease to exist." She looked back at the debris floating past her window. "This is not war as the galaxy understands it. This is humanity protecting its young, and we are just getting started." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the wreckage behind. Ahead waited IV and 230 children who had almost given up hope. Humanity was coming for them, and nothing in the galaxy would stand in their way. The planet IV hung in space like a gray wound. Its surface was covered with factory complexes and holding facilities, a world dedicated entirely to processing slaves from across the galaxy. For centuries, children from dozens of species had passed through this place, their spirits broken, their futures stolen. Today that would end. Admiral Bai stood on the bridge of the broken lullaby, watching 800 warships move into defensive formation around the planet. The enemy had gathered everything they had to stop the human fleet. They thought their numbers would be enough. They were wrong. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Han Yi-jun announced. 2,300 vessels. The allied species are with us." Bai nodded slowly. Behind her fleet, ships from the and waited in support. They had come to witness what humans would do for their children. They would not be disappointed. "Open a channel to the fleet," Bai commanded. "Channel open, Admiral." She took a breath. Somewhere on that planet, 230 children were waiting, scared, alone, wondering if anyone would come for them. All hands, this is Admiral Bai. Behind those ships are our children. Nothing else matters today. Not our lives, not our ships, not the odds against us. We will reach that planet. We will bring them home. She paused, letting her words settle into every heart across the fleet. Today we show the galaxy what humanity truly is. Forward, for the children. 2,000 ships surged forward. 800 vessels moved to meet them, and the space around IV erupted into fire. The battle was chaos. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The fought with the desperation of those who finally understood their enemy. They had expected farmers. They found warriors. Captain Omin commanded the battleship Soul's Fury from the left flank. He was 42 years old, a calm man who had spent his career in cargo shipping before the attack changed everything. Now he watched his guns tear through hulls without a trace of doubt. Enemy destroyer on approach, his weapons officer shouted. Target and destroy, Min replied. His voice never wavered. Then move to the next one. The Soul's Fury lived up to its name. Ship after ship fell to its weapons, but for every vessel that died, more seemed to take its place. In the center of the formation, the broken lullaby pushed toward the planet. Admiral Bai directed the battle with cold precision, her years of experience guiding every decision. Then the enemy flagship appeared. Commander As had come himself. His massive vessel dwarfed everything around it, bristling with weapons that had destroyed fleets before humanity ever reached for the stars. Admiral, Yijun said quietly, the enemy flagship is targeting us directly. Bai looked at the monster on her screen. She thought about the message As had sent, threatening the children. She thought about his laughter when humanity declared war. All power to forward shields and weapons, she ordered. We're going straight at him. Admiral, our shields won't hold against a sustained assault from that ship. Then we won't need them for long. The broken lullaby charged. As's flagship opened fire with everything it had. The human vessel shook as blast after blast struck its shields. Warning lights flashed across every console. Systems began to fail. Shields at 40%, Yijun reported. 30%, 20%. Maintain course, Bai said. Her eyes never left the enemy ship. Admiral, we won't survive much more of this. Bai stood from her command chair. Around her, her crew looked up with fear and trust in their eyes. They had followed her across the galaxy. They would follow her to death if she asked. All hands prepare for impact, she announced calmly. We're going to ram. For a moment the bridge was silent. Then one by one her crew returned to their stations. No one protested. No one questioned. They understood. Transfer fleet command to Captain Omin aboard the Soul's Fury, Bai continued. Tell him to finish what we started. Command transferred, Admiral. The broken lullaby accelerated. As's ship tried to turn away, but it was too slow. The human flagship struck it like a spear through flesh. Both vessels exploded in a flash of light that could be seen across the entire battlefield. Admiral Bai's last transmission echoed through the fleet. For the children. The loss of their commander's ship stunned their formation broke. Confusion spread through their ranks. Captain Min saw the opening and seized it. All ships push forward. Get our ground teams to the surface. Assault ships dove toward IV, carrying Major and his 500 guardians. Anti-air fire filled the sky, but the pilots flew through it with desperate skill. Nothing would stop them now. Transport hit the ground hard. Before the dust settled, he was already moving. Go, go, go. The facility is 2 kilometers north. 500 soldiers poured out across the gray landscape. Enemy fire came from every direction. Soldiers fell, but others took their places. They did not stop. They could not stop. The facility loomed ahead, a massive structure of metal and stone. 10,000 soldiers guarded it. They had been told the humans would never reach them. Now they watched an army of determined warriors charging toward their walls. "Breach team, you're up," shouted. Sergeant Oh-Mi Young led 20 soldiers carrying explosives. They reached the main door under covering fire and planted their charges. The explosion tore the entrance apart. "Inside, move." The fighting became close and brutal. Corridor by corridor, room by room, the Guardians pushed deeper into the facility. Soldiers fought desperately, but they had never faced anything like this. Humans who did not retreat. Humans who kept coming no matter how many fell. Medic Jin moved through the chaos, treating the wounded where they lay. Her hands were steady even as weapons fire passed overhead. Every life she saved was another soldier who could help reach the children. "Major," a scout reported through the radio. "We found them, sub-level 5, the children are there." Felt his heart surge. All teams converge on sub-level 5, push through everything. They found the corridor leading to the holding cells. It was guarded by 100, the elite of their forces. The Guardians had lost half their number reaching this point. "We need to break through," said. He looked at his remaining soldiers. 250 faces looked back at him. They were exhausted, wounded, but unbroken. "I'll hold them," he said. "Get the children out." Major Mi-young started. "That's an order, Sergeant. Get them home." Walked forward alone. He raised his weapons and charged. The enemy focused on him. That was exactly what he wanted. Behind him, his soldiers found another route, pushing through side corridors toward the cells. Fought like nothing human. He became a force of nature, a wall that the enemy could not pass. One fell, then another, then a dozen. He took wounds that would have killed any normal man, but he would not stop. The first enemy to reach him died with surprise in its eyes. The second barely had time to raise its weapon, moved through them like a storm, buying precious seconds for his team. 47 enemies fell before they finally brought him down. His last act was to trigger the explosives on his belt. The corridor collapsed behind him, sealing the enemy away from the escape route. In the cells, Mi-young found the children. 230 small faces looked up at her with eyes full of fear and desperate hope. "We're here," she said, her voice cracking. "We're taking you home." The evacuation was chaos, but the Guardians had trained for this. Each soldier knew exactly what to do. Children were gathered, protected, guided toward the surface where transport ships waited. Jin worked through the group, checking for injuries, offering comfort where she could. Many of the children were traumatized, barely able to speak. She held their hands and whispered promises. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you again." They reached the surface as the space battle ended. The fleet had been destroyed. Human ships filled the sky. The first transport lifted off, carrying 50 children toward orbit, then another, and another. When the last child left the planet's surface, every ship in the fleet sounded its horns. It was an old naval tradition, a way of honoring those who had been saved. On Earth, 12-year-old Bo-young watched the broadcast with millions of others. She saw faces she recognized. Her friends. Children she had grown up with. Children she thought she would never see again. For the first time since the attack, she cried. Not from grief, but from relief. The children were coming home. The cost had been terrible. Admiral Bai was gone. Major was gone. Hundreds of soldiers had given their lives. But 230 children were alive and free. Captain Min stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury, now flagship of the fleet. Around him, crews celebrated and mourned at the same time. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "what do we do now?" Min looked at the planet below. It was still full of soldiers. There waited somewhere beyond. "We're not done," he said. "We saved our children. Now we make sure no one ever takes anyone's children again." The fleet began to move. The reckoning had only begun. The burned with the light of 5,000 human warships. Captain Omin, now acting admiral by necessity and sacrifice, stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury and watched the planet turn slowly beneath him. 30 days had passed since the attack on Earth's orphanage. 30 days of grief, fury, and relentless advance. The fleet had grown beyond anything humanity had ever assembled. Every colony had sent ships. Every human who could fight had volunteered. They had crossed the galaxy on a wave of righteous anger. Now they had arrived. Admiral Lieutenant Han Yi-jun reported. He had transferred from the broken lullaby before it made its final charge. The High Command is transmitting. They want to surrender. Min did not respond immediately. He thought about Admiral Bai, who had given her life so the fleet could reach the planet. He thought about Major, who had held a corridor alone so children could escape. He thought about 847 children who would never grow up. "Put them through," he said finally. The image of a commander appeared on screen. This one was older than Os had been, its gray skin wrinkled with age. Its eyes, which had once looked upon the galaxy with contempt, now showed only fear. "Human commander," it said, "we offer complete surrender. We will return all captives. We will pay any price you demand. Please, stop." Min looked at the alien for a long moment. "You had 3,000 years to learn mercy," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You had 3,000 years to stop taking children. You chose not to. Now you ask us for the kindness you never showed others." "We made a mistake." "You made a choice," Min cut him off, "and now you will live with the consequences." He ended the transmission. "All ships," he announced to the fleet, "begin the operation. Military targets only, no civilian casualties, we are not them." 5,000 ships descended on them. They destroyed every military base, every shipyard, every weapons factory, every orbital station. The bombardment lasted 12 hours. When it ended, they had no military left. Not a single warship remained. Not a single weapon system survived. They were helpless, exactly as their victims had been for 3,000 years. Back on Earth, President Ho addressed the Galactic Federation Council one final time. The chamber that had once looked at humanity with pity now watched with a mixture of awe and fear. "We did not want this war," Ho said. His voice carried across the vast room. "We came to the stars seeking peace. We joined your federation hopping to find community. And for 120 years we tried to be good members, quiet members. We followed your rules. We respected your procedures." He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "Then they touched our children." The council was utterly silent. "You told us to wait, to follow protocol, to accept that justice might take years if it came at all. You did not understand something fundamental about humanity. Our children are not negotiable. Their safety is not something we compromise. Their lives are not acceptable losses in your political calculations." He stepped forward, his eyes sweeping across the representatives of hundreds of species. "We have evidence that they took over 40,000 children from various species over the past 3 centuries. Children, 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 many others, your children. And you did nothing. You wrote reports. You held meetings. You made speeches. Meanwhile, children suffered." Several representatives lowered their eyes in shame. "That ends today. Humanity is establishing the Guardian Corps, a permanent fleet dedicated to one purpose, protecting children throughout the galaxy. Any species that wishes to join may do so. Any species that preys on the young will face the same fate as the—" He turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. Director Hana of the Global Children's Sanctuary has been named the first director of Galactic Child Protection. She was badly hurt protecting children during the attack, but she survived, and now she will make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." On the survivors emerged from their shelters to find their world changed forever. Their fleets were gone. Their weapons were gone. Their 3,000 years of terror had come to an end in a single month. Human soldiers walked among them, not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as guards ensuring no one rebuilt what had been destroyed. Medical teams helped wounded civilians. Engineers restored power to damaged cities. Despite everything they had done, humanity did not answer cruelty with cruelty. But they never forgot, and they made sure they would never forget either. 1 year later, the Global Children's Sanctuary reopened. It had been rebuilt, larger and stronger than before, with shields that could withstand any attack and guards trained by the Guardians themselves. In the garden, 847 cherry trees stood in perfect rows, one for each child lost in the attack. Director Hana walked among the trees, her steps slower than they used to be. The attack had left her with injuries that would never fully heal, but she was alive, and she had work to do. Bo Young, now 13, walked beside her. The girl had changed in the past year. She was quieter, more serious, but there was strength in her eyes that had not been there before. Director Bo Young said softly, "Are we safe now?" Hana looked at the girl, then up at the sky where the Guardian Corps flagship Never Again was visible as a bright star. "No one is ever completely safe," she said honestly. "Bad things can still happen, but now if anyone tries to hurt children again, the whole galaxy knows what will happen. We showed them who we are." Bo Young nodded slowly. She stopped at one of the cherry trees and placed a flower at its base. This tree was for her best friend, who had died in the attack. "I miss her," Bo Young whispered. Hana put a hand on the girl's shoulder. "So do I. We will always miss them. That's why we have to keep going for them." The memorial ceremony began at sunset. Thousands gathered in the garden as the sky turned orange and pink. Survivors from the attack stood alongside soldiers who had fought to rescue the captive children. Families of the fallen wept and embraced. Hana stepped up to the central platform. Her voice was carried across the garden and broadcast to every human world. 1 year ago, we experienced the worst day in human history. Enemies attacked our children. They killed our children. They took our children. They thought this would break us. They thought we were weak. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. They were wrong. Her voice grew stronger. They thought our love for children was a weakness. They learned it is the one thing that makes humanity unstoppable. Touch our children and we will follow you to the edge of the universe. We will find you. We will stop you. And we will remind the galaxy why humans are feared. Applause erupted, thunderous and unending. In orbit above Earth, the Never Again began its first patrol. The ship was crewed by volunteers from every human colony and from a dozen allied species. Its mission was simple: go anywhere in the galaxy where children were in danger. Protect them. Save them. Captain Min had retired from military service after the war. He had done enough fighting. But before he left, he wrote the Guardian Corps oath that every new member would swear. "I will defend the innocent. I will protect the young. I will never surrender. I will never forget. Where children cry for help, I will answer. Where evil threatens the future, I will stand against it. I am a guardian. I am human." Across the galaxy, species told new stories to their young. Not stories of human weakness or human foolishness. Stories of warning. "Be kind to human children," parents told their offspring. Their parents have no limits. Their love has no boundaries. They will cross galaxies to protect their young. And in the garden of the Global Children's Sanctuary, as the last light of day faded and the stars came out, 847 cherry trees stood in silent witness to humanity's promise. Never again. The children played beneath the trees, their laughter carrying on the evening wind. Some were survivors of the attack. Some were newly arrived orphans from distant colonies. All of them were loved. All of them were protected. Bo Young sat with the younger children, telling them stories of heroes and hope. She spoke of Admiral Bai, who gave her life so the children could be saved. She spoke of Major, who held a corridor alone against an army. She spoke of Director Hana, who shielded children with her own body. And that, she told them, is why you never have to be afraid. Because wherever you go, whatever happens, there will always be someone who will come for you, someone who will fight for you, someone who will never ever give up. A little boy named Wu Jin, the same one she had hidden with during the attack, looked up at her with wide eyes. "Promise?" he asked. Bo Young smiled and pulled him into a hug. "I promise." Above them, the stars sparkled in the darkness, and the Guardian Corps fleet sailed on through the endless night, watching over a galaxy that had finally learned to fear humanity's love.